God, I love Predator. I love it so much it's hard to even explain why. People try and oversimplify it into a story about a bunch of muscly meatheads who get massacred by some monster one by one. But I think it's a lot more ambitious than that. We get not one, but two plot twists in the first half. First, when Dutch learns that his buddy Dylan lied to him about the nature of their mission.
You set us up! It's all bullshit! All of it!
And then again when they find out they're not being hunted by a bunch of Soviet-backed South American rebels, but by a 7.5-foot tall invisible arboreal alien with energy-based laser targeting weapons and heat vision technology. It's the world's greatest remake of the most dangerous game.
Don't! Leave it! He didn't kill you because you weren't armed. No sport.
I also think it's a lot more subversive than people give it credit for. Besides all the literal side-eyeing of the CIA throughout the first act.
We're a rescue team, not assassins.
Sure, Jan.
The film spends the whole second half slyly subverting some of the most popular muscle man action movie cliches of the 1980s, not least of all by kicking all these He-Men's asses with a monster that, in its most Jungian interpretation, is about as overt a case of vagina dentata we'll ever get out of mainstream Hollywood cinema.
You one ugly motherfucker.
Surge. You're reaching. Oh, am I?
Okay, pussyface.
Not to shortchange the sheer watchability with all this talk of young. The script is what they call a real crackerjack, with an exciting escalation of stakes across a brisk 107-minute runtime, and at least one clever reversal in each and every set piece.
No blood, no bodies. We hit nothing.
Even though almost every single scene starts with exterior jungle on the page, the action sequences are staged in such a way that there's always a clear area of operation and rules of engagement, and then it subverts those rules in surprising but sensible ways. It also features what might be my all-time favorite action movie score by Alan Silvestri. And this the same year he did Overboard. And of course, there's the big man himself. The eponymous alien predator, or Yautja if you're cool. For being basically just an armored humanoid, the artists at Stan Winston Studios got a ton of mileage out of this creature design.
On an airplane, flying to Japan, with Jim Cameron sitting next to me, and while I was on this airplane flight to Japan, I was sketching concepts for the Predator. Jim Cameron looked over to me and says, you know, I always wanted to see something with mandibles. And I went, oh, really? Well, so what?
Vaguely reptilian hominid with mandibles sounds about as bare bones as it gets on paper, but the way the beady little eyes and complex set of mouth parts manage to evoke the unnerving otherness of crustaceans without sacrificing the terrifying premeditated sentience of the predator makes for what I think is one of the most evocative humanoid monster designs ever put to film. Even the way the brow slopes forward so that it's always maintaining eye contact by either thrusting out its chin in smug defiance or leaning forward in cocksure contempt. It's really one of the most subtle and effective design choices I've ever... Look, you get it. I love this design. But you know what's even cooler than the look? Something that all the sketches, screenshots, and publicity photos failed to capture? The performance. This predator is performing for Dutch's benefit here. The slow build-up. The sly reveal, the smug smirk before unleashing that terrible reptilian roar. Oh, the pageantry! This predator's a diva. It somehow knows how intimidating it looks, and wants to see Dutch's heart drop into his feet when it finally reveals its face.
You one ugly motherfucker.
And we wouldn't know any of that if not for actor Kevin Peter Hall.
I am Predator, master of the universe.
Every part you take on proposes certain kinds of challenges, and being in the suit makes other kind of challenges because you wonder how much of your performance is actually going to come through. Most people think that when you prepare for a role for this, it's mostly just physical. It's mostly just jogging and push-ups and movement, and all of that's very important. Endurance is very important to be inside a suit. It's very hot. There was also a lot of thought into what kind of movement, what kind of planet he came from. You work on the inner things that are going on in the character, just like as you would in any character, in the suit or out of the suit.
So Kevin Peter Hall is like one of the most famous actors you've never heard of, because his most famous roles were all done inside full-body latex suits. I ran a poll on Twitter a while back to see if anyone recognized his name, and almost nobody did. And most people who have heard of him usually only know him from his two most popular roles, the headlining Predators from Predator 1 and 2, and Harry the Sasquatch from Harry and the Hendersons. But despite his relatively brief 12-year career, Hall managed to craft a truly obsession-worthy filmography that I haven't been able to stop thinking about for months, filled with all sorts of underappreciated gems and forgotten classics that I want to help bring to a wider audience. He was active in comedy, he was active in horror, he was an athlete, a dancer, a gymnast, and a mime. Hall's body of work begs all sorts of fascinating questions like, how do you craft a proper performance when someone else is controlling half your face? How do you communicate emotion and intent inside of a 200-pound foam latex suit with no eye holes? Is there a fundamental difference between suit acting and traditional acting? How does your physical body affect the way people see you and the kinds of work that you can get? What is legacy? How much control does anyone have over what they're remembered for? Just how badly can you make all your co-stars fall in love with you?
We love you, Kevin. You're letting me be on film. I'm Stan Winston. This is John Rosengrant. This is Shane Mahan.
They made me what I am today.
I want you to know that this man was 4'11" before we met him.
That's right.
I can't believe you've never heard of Kevin Peter Hall. Tired, trite, pugilistic. I can't believe I get to tell you about Kevin Peter Hall. Effusive, transcendent, based. Hall's first role was in the 1979 eco-horror Prophecy, as one of 3 credited mimes who played the giant mutant monster bear Katahdin.
That's one of their legends. They call it Katahdin. Yeah, it's sort of a Bigfoot, I guess. Only it's uglier.
This film is one of my all-time favorite eco-horrors. It's tense, it's earnest, it's exciting, equal parts heartbreaking and horrifying.
It's methylmercury poisoning, that's what it is. This whole place has been contaminated.
But then I'm something of an outlier here. Most critics, and in fact some of the filmmakers themselves, expressed great disappointment in the finished product. Screenwriter David Seltzer is so unsparing in the Blu-ray special features that they go ahead and throw up a disclaimer at the beginning of his interview about how his views do not reflect the opinions of Shout Factory Home Video.
I said, let me tell you something. I went to college and didn't join a fraternity. I'm out there with those people. I have no interest in your fucking prop truck.
Common complaints include a formulaic plot, an alcoholic director who didn't know what he was doing, and an extremely underwhelming monster design. Yeah, the bear suit gets thrown under the bus a lot. In fact, it actually looks like it was thrown under the bus a lot. Personally, I always liked the look of Katahdin. It looks like it's in pain, like its body doesn't work, which fits in well with the environmental themes of the script.
Did you know? I didn't want to.
Tom McLaughlin was the primary suit actor, with Hall stepping in for all the shots where the bear needed to look really, really big. I've got my own suspicions as to which shots did and didn't feature Hall, but in the Blu-ray special features, McLaughlin goes ahead and identifies one shot in particular that Hall definitely did.
He was the one that didn't really articulate. You know, you could kind of walk in it. You know, the head didn't do anything. But any of the scenes where, like, he swatted the Jeep or whatever, where you had to have something that was about the right size, you know, he would be in that particular suit.
But I'll be the first to admit, it's a shame it didn't give the performers much of a chance to actually perform. It's disappointingly stiff and expressionless. Apparently it was built in just a few weeks by the one production company that thought it could do the job on time and on budget. So all it really does is just sort of stomp around and swipe at stuff. McLaughlin says he researched actual bear movement in preparation for filming, but I don't think he or Hall got much of a chance to showcase their talents. The suit just wouldn't allow it. Hall wasn't asked about Prophecy too much in interviews, but I did find one where he described the audition process like this.
I didn't have to audition for the role of the bear. I fit the physical requirements they needed. There was a little period where I went to the producer's home and I had to act like an animal. I had to crawl around, growl. I didn't take it very seriously.
For what it's worth, Hall wasn't completely critical of his experience either.
My favorite was biting this guy's head off. It's not every day you get to do that.
Plus, he and McLaughlin became good friends, and when McLaughlin got the chance to direct the low-budget horror film One Dark Night a few years later, he gave Hall a cameo, which then became his first credited out-of-costume appearance.
We'll make it. I'll meet you in the showers. Breaker, that's not an invite.
In 1980, Hall played a trophy-hunting alien who uses an array of projectile weapons to whittle down a group of hapless townies, some of whom briefly escape danger by jumping into water, before it's finally lured into a trap and killed by the movie's sole survivor. And the joke is that the movie isn't Predator. It is sort of uncanny how many superficial similarities Without Warning shares with Predator, a fact that was not lost on Hall.
I did a movie called Without Warning, which was about an alien that comes to Earth to hunt man. So I guess I've done Predator 3 or 4 times.
But if you ask me, it's well worth remembering on its own merits. The film had a staggeringly low budget of just $150,000, but I think it's a lot better than it could have been.
Our friends are dead.
It's got cheap but appropriately gross special effects, a goofy but not boring script, better than average performances from a really solid cast, including a 24-year-old David Caruso, and thoughtful cinematography from future Academy Award nominee Dean Cundey.
Oh, goodbye, alien. Don't be afraid, it's gonna work all right.
With all that said, Hall's given less to do than anyone else in the film, which was sort of a running theme throughout his early career. He basically just stands there ominously throughout the film, sometimes not so ominously. But then in the final scene, when Jack Palance is luring the alien into a shack that's been rigged to explode, Hall finally gets to do some actual expression, when the monster realizes something's up right before the trap is sprung. Funnily enough, this beat almost exactly mirrors another moment from Predator, when that particular alien hunter also realizes it's being led into a trap.
I'm here! Kill me! Come on, kill me! I'm here! Come on! Do it now! Kill me!
In 1982, Hall had what was basically a glorified cameo in the made-for-TV movie Mazes and Monsters, with barely a minute of total screen time in which he lumbers towards Tom Hanks in a floppy green Gorville costume and then falls over. Twice. But anyone with even a passing interest in Hall's career shouldn't skip this one, if only for everything else going on in this movie. It was adapted quickly to take advantage of the moral panic surrounding Dungeons & Dragons in the early 80s.
Now, Mazes and Monsters is a fantasy role-playing game in which the players create an imaginary character.
And tells the story of a young college kid, played by a 26-year-old Hanks in his first lead role, who has a psychotic break while playing the fantasy role-playing game Mazes and Monsters, which sees him embark on a hallucinatory quest across New York in which he kills a mugger he mistakes for a monster, and then climbs to the top of the World Trade Center where he intends to cast a flight spell. And then his friends have to convince him it's all a fantasy before he throws himself off.
Hey.
JJ, what am I doing here?
A+, no notes. Hall had another cameo, but this time out of costume, in the 1984 coming-of-age dramedy The Wildlife, which is an otherwise forgettable film, if you ask me, save for the fact that it's one of only 3 instances of Kevin Peter Hall's face that we have in HD, and that alone makes it feel significant enough to remember.
Thanks, bud. Don't touch the girls.
For the next several years, Hall switched from film to TV, with prominent guest appearances on ER, not the super famous ER that ran for 15 seasons from 1994 to 2009, but an unrelated predecessor that aired for just 1 season in 1984. He was also in the final episode of Dukes of Hazzard, which is now the one episode of Hazzard I have ever seen, and Night Court.
Okay, settle down, everybody. Now stop the talking.
You don't have to push me. Hey! The little fella said to be quiet.
Hall singled out Night Court as the first role that got him recognized in public. And for good reason. It's the first chance he ever got to do some actual performing out of costume. Hall plays an escaped mental patient who gets arrested for failing to pay a big cab fare, and then petitions the court for him and 4 other patients' freedom. Hey, what about me?
Pardon?
There are 5 of us! You forgot me, stupid!
That's Gilbert.
The 80s were a weird time for social justice issues in popular media. Like, the show clearly wants to be sympathetic to the mentally disabled.
Don't we have that right, Dan?
What, to give up? Yes, it's sacred.
No. To do what's in our best interests.
But its depictions of mental illness are about as cartoony as a Monty Python skit.
I've got a radar installation in my pants.
Hall's mental illness isn't even specified. He's sort of just aggressively friendly.
What's your name?
Has a hard time reading the room.
Good.
Doesn't pick up on social cues.
This is Dan, my new friend.
But that's not mentally ill. That's just ENFP. But then again, if you wanted to interpret this episode as charitably as possible, the fact that he's actually pretty normal helps illustrate the point that society's response to the mentally ill is often more debilitating than mental illness itself.
You ever been institutionalized?
Why do you ask?
People always ask me, do I play basketball?
And by the end of the episode, the butt of the joke does indeed shift from the patients to the people who still resent them.
We got some free time, like Dr. Osborne promised, so we thought we'd come by and visit.
Ah, good. Who?
You.
Hall gave an interview in the December 1985 issue of Starlog magazine, in which he revealed he had read for the role in Enemy Mine that eventually went to Louis Gossett Jr., which would have been so cool to see him in. But ultimately, he said he was glad he didn't get the part because it allowed him to do what would eventually become the most prominent out-of-costume role of his career. Misfits of Science is a television sci-fi comedy about a group of oddball superhero crime fighters which ran for 1 season, which, unfortunately, has never been released on home video in the United States.
You know, I was hoping for a little bit more enthusiasm here, okay?
Just a Region 2 box set in Germany. All these clips are from YouTube, but the quality is so low it almost feels like there's no point in reviewing them. They're here for posterity, not for anyone's viewing pleasure, which is just such a shame. This is the first time Hall ever got top billing, or almost top billing. He's listed second in the credits right after Dean Martin's son, and I'd love to see him get the chance to flex his comedy muscles after what we saw in Night Court. Hall plays a scientist who's able to shrink down to just 7 inches when he presses a gland on the back of his neck. I like this. I want to see how that helps him fight crime. Starlog interviewed Hall when the show was in pre-production, and it sounded like he was more than ready to turn the corner on cheap monster movies.
No more grunt rolls. I look at my body and I see all these scars. I have sustained more injuries from acting than I have from doing anything else, and that included playing sports. The problem is, there aren't many calls for 7'4" black actors. Still, if I had let myself get discouraged, I wouldn't be here now. I believe in myself and my acting.
The pitch for Misfits sounds to me like a much-deserved culmination of all of his efforts up until that point in his career, and I'd love nothing more than for a proper box set to be released this side of the pond. Oh well, I guess we start a Change.org petition now, right? Despite what Hall said in that interview about grunt roles, Hall returned to monster suits for his next 3 projects. But unlike any of his previous costume performances, these would all be starring roles. First came Monster in the Closet in 1986. This movie is... well, it's weird. I'd never heard of it before I started doing research for this video, but I'm glad I get to expose it to a wider audience, because weird isn't the same thing as bad. Monster in the Closet is a tongue-in-cheek horror comedy about a monster of unknown origin that bursts out of closets throughout the San Francisco Bay Area, stinging its victims with a paralytic inner mandible and then dragging them back into the closet, never to be seen again. The film follows a journalist, a schoolteacher, the schoolteacher's son, a scientist, and 1 priest, just for good measure, as they track the creature's movements and try to get a reluctant general to listen to their plans to put a stop to it. This movie is great for fans of shaggy dog humor, where the punchline is that there is no punchline. Take this scene from early in the film. There's a woman showering, a shadow comes up behind the curtain, then it's ripped back, and it's just her husband.
Roy!
But then he leaves, and the shadow comes back, and it's the husband again.
We can use a quart of milk.
Okay, I'll be back in about 15 minutes.
And then he leaves, shadow comes back,
Roy! What are you doing?
and...
I can't find my keys to the car. Can I borrow yours?
If you're not at least chuckling by now, then this movie's probably not for you. And if you're not laughing out loud when the husband gets attacked when he goes to the closet, then this movie's definitely not for you. But at least it knows exactly what it is. And I've always had a soft spot for movies like that. After several slow speed chases across the Bay Area, one attempt at blowing it up and one attempt at luring it into an electrified trap, both of which fail miserably, humanity finally manages to defeat the monster by destroying all the closets in the world so that it has no means of escape. Again, if you don't find that hysterical, then this movie is probably not for you. As for Hall's contribution, while the monster suit is certainly very cheap, and I imagine the work wasn't too comfortable, look at that, he can't even stand up straight. At least Hall is on camera throughout most of the film, which gave him a chance to express a monster's intent more than ever before. Hall was a trained dancer and took mime classes, and I think this is the first monster role where you can actually tell. With all that said, Hall's praise for the film ran extremely short.
I read the script. It was a very funny spoof about monsters coming out of the closet. They were takeoffs of different horror films. It seemed like fun, but it wasn't. Nobody got paid much. It was almost all deferred. All the actors got minimum. We were supposed to get this great deal when the movie was sold, but nothing ever happened with it. Everybody got ripped off.
Thankfully, his next two projects were straight-up career makers. June 1987 was a big month for Hall, as it saw the release of the two biggest hits of his career. Harry and the Hendersons is one of my favorite films of the 1980s.
Oh, right. Yours was the fish.
It tells the story of a family returning from a camping trip in the Cascades who hit Bigfoot with their car. Twice. After checking his pulse and deciding he's really dead, they take him back to their home in Seattle to try and figure out how to make some money off of him, only to find out that he's still not dead after all. Family patriarch George is an avid sports hunter, and it doesn't take long for him to confront Harry with a rifle. But when he does, I'll be blunt, this film couldn't work without Kevin Peter Hall. Special effects maestro Rick Baker decided early on in pre-production that the audience needed to see Hall's eyes.
The mask was designed in a way so that we would utilize Kevin's eyes.
It was very important that he could look John Lithgow, he could look the characters in the eyes, he could look the audience in the eyes, and you would go, there's humanity in there.
And the effect is just sort of incredible. This whole project hinges on getting the audience to sympathize with Harry, and the ability to let Hall emote is critical to that success, a fact that was not lost on the marketing department.
Kevin was 7'2", and Kevin wanted to be Harry. From the time he came in, I mean, we interviewed a lot of people, big, gangly people that had done suit work before, but when Kevin came in, there was something about it. You could see the passion to bring Harry to life, and there was really, once we saw Kevin, there was no question.
In addition to the eyes, Hall could also control Harry's jaw, which allowed him to add all sorts of expressive little grunts, gasps, and growls to his performance. Hall is doing a ton of work here with his hands and shoulders, too. It's amazing to me how well he's able to embody shyness and timidity in a suit that's taller than most people's ceilings, and his posture is doing a lot of uncredited heavy lifting.
Sorry.
There's a moment later in the film when Bigfoot hunting fever has gripped Seattle, where George's dad asks George to draw a big Sasquatch for the store.
Big fangs, a lot of drool.
George draws Harry, but only as he truly is.
I wanted King Kong, and you brought me a goddamn giant gerbil.
The subsequent scene where George's dad goes back and adds big teeth and claws to help drive gun sales taught me the very concept of betrayal as a child.
How's that for an arthritic old shooter, huh?
What the hell did you do that for? It was my drawing. Why'd you change it?
Hey, George, cool down. It's just a piece of cardboard.
Not to me. It means something to me.
And I think part of the shock that still stays with me to this day is witnessing the violent corruption of Hall's ever-expressive face. Hall's work on Harry and the Hendersons begs the question, maybe more than any of his other roles, what's the fundamental difference between acting in a suit and acting without one? And in trying to come up with an answer, I'm reminded of an old quote. Why did man invent language?
I don't think you'll ever know how much you've meant to us.
So that he could hide his emotions. Just 1 week after Harry and the Hendersons, Predator dropped. Hall was asked about both roles in several interviews, and it sounds like he had fun comparing them.
I had just done Harry and the Hendersons, and I wasn't looking to get typecast as somebody who could only play sweet things. The Predator was violent and nitty-gritty, totally the opposite of Harry. I wanted to do it to show my versatility, and so, if I were to go on and do more creature roles, I wouldn't just get the nice ones.
And kudos to this one reporter who straight up just asked him which role he identified with more.
Which one is more close to you or that's more fun to play?
I think Harry's definitely more me, the lovable visitor in the home. And the other, you kill people, and then you kill more people, and then you die.
What's worth noting here is that Hall was hired after filming had already started, when the filmmakers decided that the first iteration of the Predator wasn't working.
I shot a shot, 2 shots, with the damn thing, and just sent it back to the studio saying, "You really don't want us to continue with this, do you?" And they looked at it and said, "Nope, wait, stop."
For one thing, it looked silly, like a cross between a praying mantis and a whippet, and not in a good way. For another, it was played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, who's only 5'10". Now, 5'10" isn't short by any means. I mean, it's 2 inches taller than me. But Arnold Schwarzenegger is 6'2". Almost all the actors here are over 6 feet. You need an actor who towers over Arnold in order to make this work, and that's what they got with Hall. But this wasn't just a repeat of Prophecy, where Hall was hired just because he fit the height requirements. What surprised me the most while doing research for this video was the level of decision-making power that Hall had in the design of the Predator itself.
I had been hired after the filming had stopped and the costume and the art were being changed. The alien they had in the scrapped footage was more wild. Really didn't have much of a personality. It was just this wild thing that was killing people. During my meetings with John, it was decided that they wanted more intellect to the creature, and to play up the fact it was a hunter. John basically asked me to design the character. My take was the Predator had to be somewhat human so that the audience could relate to it. Even though the role was totally nonverbal and totally physical, I saw some great acting possibilities that would encompass pronounced gestures, what I would call silent acting.
And as you all know by now, I think he nailed it. Filming Predator was infamously arduous. There are stories of everyone getting Montezuma's revenge at some point, everyone except Arnold Schwarzenegger, who had all his meals prepared by a private chef, and director John McTiernan, who simply didn't eat. I once heard somewhere that one of the actors accidentally laid his head down on an anthill, and Hall had to wear a poorly ventilated 200-pound suit for hours at a time.
Wait, I gotta take a deep breath.
He even recounts one story in an issue of Starlog where 9 explosives were supposed to fire from his shoulder cannon in quick succession, but when the technicians hit the switch, all 9 of them went off at once, which destroyed the shoulder cannon and promptly caught the suit on fire. But there's one anecdote he gave during an interview with Deadline UK that I wanted to share, if only because it's just so different from all the rest.
There were no clouds, no pollution, no lights, because there is nothing where we were shooting. Absolutely nothing. And I saw the most amazing sights because the sky would be filled with more stars than I've ever seen in my entire life. And it was that time of year when the fireflies were out. The fireflies would fill the fields as far as you could see, and everything twinkled everywhere. And I sat for hours and hours just watching the night go by.
In the 4 years following the release of Harry and the Hendersons and Predator, Hall did more TV and a couple of bit parts in some movies. He has a handful of lines in 1988's Big Top Pee-wee.
Hey boss, everybody wants to know where we're heading. Are we moving on tonight?
A guest appearance on Star Trek The Next Generation that's so short it probably wouldn't even trip the copyright censors if I played the whole thing. And a 2.5-minute guest appearance in a Rodney Dangerfield HBO comedy special that is literally one of the cringiest things I have ever seen with my own 2 eyes.
Tell me, Richard, what exactly inspired you to to write this book?
Well, Johnny, I'm leading a life of confusion. I'm a big black man with a small dick.
Oof. I actually found one quote about this project, which was given before it taped in his interview with Deadline UK.
I'm doing a comedy special with Rodney Dangerfield, which is exciting. There are a lot of comedians on it. I'll get the important feedback and play with the other actors that are known for comedy.
Not to assign him his own motivations. I mean, maybe he loved this experience. But it sounds to me like he might have just been a working actor looking for more exposure. Then, in 1989, Hall was cast in one of his most prominent uncostumed roles in the sitcom 227. Running for 5 seasons, from 1985 to 1990, 227 tells the story of a middle-class family of 3 living in Washington, D.C., which starred Marla Gibbs, Hal Williams, and Regina King in her first credited role. Kevin Peter Hall joined the cast in its 5th and final season as Warren Merriweather, the boyfriend of series regular Rose Holloway, played by Elena Reed Hall. Oh. Huh. Reed Hall. Is that a coincidence, or did they actually... Yep. After meeting on set and a year-long courtship, Hall and Reed married in real life before the final season aired, and then their characters get married in the 112th episode of the show.
Mr. and Mrs. Warren Merriweather.
That's adorable. What a meet-cute. The show couldn't help but poke fun at Hall's height a little bit.
Everybody, this is my boyfriend, Warren Merriweather. I ain't got no hair.
What do you do for a living? Home big boy?
I'm a cop. I work undercover.
As what, the Washington Monument? Washington Monument. Get it?
Heard it. Heard them all.
But as far as height jokes are concerned, nobody got it worse than poor Gary Coleman.
I'm Mr. Big.
Not from where I'm standing.
Actually, it's almost sort of refreshing how little Hall's height is referenced in the show. Warren's thing is that he's an undercover cop who's prone to anxiety when he's not working a case.
I should have nabbed him, Rose. I should have. It was clearly a 672, a near sideswipe. Why did you stop me?
Which has nothing to do with how tall he is.
That wasn't Warren.
I know he's undercover, Rose, but if that's Warren, he's one of the Misfits of Science.
Hall's next project was back in familiar territory with Predator 2, a movie that sorta has a reputation for being a half-hearted retread of its predecessor, but I've always had a soft spot for it. I love how it pivots from a police procedural to a sci-fi horror halfway through. I love how the focus gets narrower and the stakes get higher with every single act. And I especially love how Hall makes big giant monsters register surprise. There's also a lengthy sequence after the Predator gets its arm cut off by Danny Glover, where the Predator triages itself in a bathroom, which I want to single out because I really think it's one of my all-time favorite practical effects sequences, thanks in large part to Kevin Peter Hall. All the wide shots, where you can see the Predator's severed arm, are of one-armed stunt performer R. David Smith, but all the close-ups are of Hall.
And even with his giant gloves and stuff on, once again Kevin shows what a master he is of kind of dexterity to be able to make that stuff look, you know, when you've got huge hands and then you've got giant rubber gloves on top to be able to pull out this kind of minute detail. It's quite a feat.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who appreciates Hall's handiwork here. Hall himself mentioned how important hands were to his performances in his interview with Deadline UK. I'm gonna keep referencing this interview as often as possible, since it cost me over 40 quid to import. So as the makeup is going on, and as the clothes are going on, you're becoming, bit by bit, that character?
People would think that it would be in the head or the face starts to happen, but really for me, in the hands. Once the hands are done up, and they're very expressive to me, I always try to use them.
In addition to the main Predator, Hall also played the Predator Chieftain at the end of the film, the one who gives Danny Glover the pistol.
Take it.
I just love how Hall manages to portray 2 completely different Predators through just stance and gesture like this. You clearly get the sense that one Predator is younger, stronger, more reckless, and the other is much cooler, calmer, like he's seen it all before.
He's off on a wild trip. This one is not doing what normal Predators do, you know, which is hunt and go by the rules. He's definitely breaking all the rules. So he's a wild boy.
Hall had a small role as Charon, the blind boatman of the River Styx, in the offbeat horror comedy Highway to Hell, which was filmed in 1989 but wasn't released until 1991, which technically makes it his official final screen appearance.
Once you have crossed, there is no way back.
But the last project he actually worked on was the Harry and the Hendersons TV show.
Where'd you get 'em? How'd you get 'em?
Which, as far as I can tell, has never been released on home video, in any country, in any format, at any time. The only footage I could find were a few random episodes uploaded in 240p to a YouTube channel called Harry und die Hendersons, by someone who appears to have taped it off their TV.
Stay tuned as Dick Van Dyke leads the campaign to win $25 million for his town.
Don't get me wrong, I'm thrilled to have these episodes available in some form, but the quality here is just too low to really appreciate Hall's work. Just the broad strokes, none of the subtleties. Hall was interviewed about the show right before it went into production, where he talked about how he was going to play this Harry different from the movie, a more pure and innocent Bigfoot, and how helpful it was to be given 2 months to physically prepare for the role. And I'd give anything to see it. But at the time of this recording, there's simply no way to see what he came up with. I consider this whole video worth making if all we got was a proper Blu-ray out of it. I encourage whoever owns the rights. Is it NBC Universal? I encourage NBC Universal, at NBC Universal, to put out a proper box set as fast as possible. Hall's original contract was for 72 episodes, but he only finished the first season. Shortly after filming was completed, Hall contracted HIV from a blood transfusion while undergoing surgery for a car crash. While writing this video, fact-checking that last sentence became a months-long obsession for me. Wikipedia cited 4 sources, 2 obituaries, and 2 books about celebrity deaths, but neither of the obituaries say anything about a car crash, or a blood transfusion, or HIV. They only say he died of pneumonia, and as for the 2 books cited, they were both published in the 2000s, so they can't be the primary sources, and neither of them cite any sources about Hall. This one gets his height wrong, so I figured this can't be the best we've got. It's not that I doubted what these sources were saying. His cause of death has been cited absolutely everywhere, for decades, so this wasn't like my quest to uncover the true cause of his death or anything. I just wanted to confirm where this information came from. I don't even know why I wanted to confirm it so bad, but after 4 weeks of research, all I knew were the same basic facts I started with. Kevin Peter Hall completed filming the first season of Harry and the Hendersons in 1990, 12 episodes aired, and then he died of AIDS-related pneumonia on April 10th, 1991, just 1 month shy of his 36th birthday. This doesn't necessarily have to be like a big show-stopping point in the video. The importance, purpose, and pleasure of an artist's work is not determined by however his life and career happened to have ended. But I'd be lying if I said that his death doesn't sit heavy with me right now. I've known how he died since I was in grade school. But it feels like it suddenly feels like it just happened. That's what I think me spending weeks trying to track down the primary source for his cause of death was really all about, distracting myself from having to come to terms with the tragedy. It was only after I had already recorded an earlier version of this video that I finally found a single paragraph in the May 1992 issue of Jet, which references an interview that Elena Reed gave to BET, which confirmed Hall's cause of death. So, Elena Reed. She's the primary source, now properly cited on Wikipedia. I guess I've been thinking a lot about dying in my mid-30s lately. Can't imagine why. Not to try and suddenly make this video all about me and my feelings, but as a lifelong fan of Hall's work, I feel it's important to try and contextualize why I care so much, so that it might then make it easier for someone else to do the same. Well, you have all the facts now, and I hope you can appreciate Kevin Peter Hall's work as much as I do, for whatever reasons that you find important for yourself. We're not done, though. In preparation for this video, I watched basically all of Kevin Peter Hall's entire filmography. He's got 20 credits on Wikipedia, and I've seen 18 of them. The only 2 I haven't seen yet are a made-for-TV movie with no wiki page, and his guest spot on ER, neither of which are anywhere I can find online. But when I reached the end of the list, having seen all of his cameos, costumes, and co-starring roles, it still felt like something inexcusable was missing. A starring role in which he appears out of costume. Is that really so much to ask? Any analysis of his work feels woefully incomplete without that. But looking back at his list of credits, I only see 1, Misfits of Science. And that one's never been released in the US. If I wanted to watch that one, I'd have to import a Region 2 box set from Germany, find a region-free disc drive to play it in, convert the episodes into MP4s using Handbrake, reconvert the episodes after making sure to select the English language track instead of German, and then finally watch and review 16 episodes of 37-year-old TV at the tail end of a video that's already pushing 40 minutes. And who's got that kind of time? Misfits of Science is about a group of disgraced scientists and mutant outcasts who form their own team of crime-fighting superheroes after they find out the government's going to shutter their lab and weaponize all their research.
You're not serious, are you? I mean, he's our baby. You can't give him to the military division.
There's Billy Hayes, the super powerless ringleader of the group, who acts as a sort of team captain slash cheerleader.
When I see you guys, I see something different. I see a team.
Then there's best friend and lab partner Elvin, played by Kevin Peter Hall, whose experiments with growth hormones have given him the ability to temporarily shrink down to just 7 inches in height.
That's little.
There are some clothes in my pocket. Do you think you could...
What are you kidding? You got clothes?
You don't expect me to run around naked, do you?
Then there's Johnny B, who moves super fast and can shoot lightning from his hands. And finally Gloria, played by a 21-year-old pre-superstardom Courtney Cox, who can move things with her mind. There was originally supposed to be a 5th member, who got cryogenically frozen in the 1930s and then thaws out in 1985 with the ability to freeze anything he touches. But he's only in the pilot episode, since apparently there were copyright issues with Marvel and the similarly powered Iceman. Although if you ask me, Johnny B and Gloria both sound a whole lot like Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch.
He's fast and she's weird.
So Misfits of Science is really, really cute. That's my 3-word review. Really, really cute. They were clearly going for a sort of laid-back Ghostbusters vibe, and I think they did a pretty good job of capturing the feel without being a total ripoff. I dig the anti-establishment feel and the scrappy production values. Like how they incorporate stock footage when they don't have the money to stage a rocket launch or the collapse of a building. In fact, it's so endearingly scrappy that even the inconsistencies started to grow on me after a while. Like in some episodes, the Misfits appear to be world famous.
I'm repeating, it appears to be the Misfits of Science.
And in other episodes, they act like they've all got secret identities to maintain.
Tell them, Glow. Oh, tell me what?
The stories generally are fairly hit or miss. Like one of my favorite episodes is when they head to Monte Carlo in order to stop the sale of the nuclear football to some terrorists. They have to win $200,000 at the roulette wheel before they're allowed into the high roller room where the sale's going to take place. And it's only after they lose all their money that they realize they could probably use some of their powers to win.
It's not cheating. It's manipulating for your country. And since when is manipulating for the country cheating?
And I'm not saying that as a negative. The writing of a fun little Bond spoof was so tight that it didn't even occur to me that they could do that until it dawned on them. But then there are other episodes that are not so good, like when a man from an uncontacted tribe in the Philippines washes ashore in Venice Beach and they immediately put him in a zoo. And they name him Link, like missing Link. Ooh.
It's like Mr. Mustache is conducting a little business, one of those yellow towel heads.
Ouch. Like I said, not every episode is a masterpiece. But when the writing lands, I think it really sticks in. Like the 10th episode, Grand Theft Bunny, which starts off with a stereotypical bleeding heart animal rights activist stealing a rabbit from a genetics lab which happens to be carrying a deadly virus, which at first I didn't much care for because it felt like the filmmakers were blaming activists for making problems worse. But then we find out it was actually the lab managers themselves who hired activists to steal the rabbit precisely so that a deadly virus would break out, and then they could get rich and famous for providing the cure.
Why would you pay someone to steal your own animals?
They don't give Nobels to guys who work on germ warfare. But if an epidemic broke out,
Through no fault of ours, but because of some loony activists.
And that's clever stuff. That's all well and good. But what about Hall? Well, I think he's great. He finally gets to flex his comedic muscles properly with a nice blend of physical comedy and character work.
I'm a college graduate, PhD, good grades. I could have been anything I wanted. I became a scientist, and when you're a scientist, nobody's looking at you.
If you're anything like me, you're wondering how a shrinking power proves useful, and I'm pleased to report that almost every shrinking sequence is either legitimately tense, or they're having lots of fun with it. When he's not busy shrinking...
Oh, what are you wearing?
Malibu Ken.
Elvin spends most of his time trying to keep Billy's reckless exuberance in check, and making sure he's not biting off more than he can chew.
Promise me. Tell me you're not going to gamble.
Hell, you gotta gamble to sit down.
Not your rent.
Not the rent. Oscar gave us a little extra cash. I'm keeping it in a separate pocket.
Which is this fun mixture of blunt honesty and persistent intervention.
Promise.
Promise?
Promise. Okay?
Okay.
Can I go now?
So one thing we haven't talked about yet is whether or not Hall ever felt exploited or othered by Hollywood's tendency to emphasize his height. His height is referenced most explicitly in the pilot episode of Misfits, when Elvin explains why he was experimenting with human growth hormone in the first place.
Why do you think I spend all my free time on growth research? I want to be able to buy my clothes in normal people's shops, drive a car without kinking my neck, sleep in a bed with my feet in it. I want to be able to go out on a basketball court without feeling so much pressure.
It comes up again in a later episode, when Elvin has to go undercover as a star basketball player to find out whether or not the owner is telling his players to throw games. And thanks largely to Stereotype Threat, his basketball skills are so poor that Gloria has to use telekinesis to get him any points on the board.
Scientifically, how'd that ball reach you?
The angle of incidence equals the angle of reflection.
That's right. But what makes it drop?
Gravity.
Okay, what makes it bounce back up?
Action, reaction.
So why do we dribble?
Friction loss.
That's right. And you know something? You're the only one out there in that court that knows that. Huh?
In all the interviews I ever read with Hall, only one interviewer ever asked him if he thought he was being unfairly exploited by Hollywood. And it was asked in reference to Misfits of Science. And for whatever it's worth, Hall seemed to shrug off these concerns.
Look, the show could have been called by other titles. Somebody once asked me if they considered calling it Freaks. They probably could have. Frankly, I wouldn't be surprised to see the press pick up on the Freaks tag. But it's no different from my everyday life. I'm 7 feet tall every day, and people treat me differently until they get to know me. Nobody knows what it's like to be like this, but I don't look at it as a deformity.
All told, Misfits of Science gave Kevin Peter Hall the chance to flex his comedy muscles more than any other role. The straight man who is also somehow funny.
Or maybe I just get so mad and so angry that I just break down a wall or kick in a door.
Plus, it's the only role that ever gave Kevin Peter Hall a chance to dance, whilst impersonating a stringless marionette in a magic show.
No one ever told you got a body built to last.
There are projects that I've mentioned in this video that I'd really only recommend to a Kevin Peter Hall completist.
Feast your eyes on the magnificent Eddie. She's big, she's beautiful, but don't get too close, she's hungry.
But Misfits of Science is worth everybody checking out.
I mean, it's definitely not a museum. I mean, there's no little signs next to the pictures.
The guys that grabbed us for special services, this must be a government building.
Well, that would explain the deficit.
Hey, so one last thing before we wrap up. Just how tall was Kevin Peter Hall? 7 foot? 7'2"? 7'4"? Believe it or not, I've seen all three in print. Maybe some interviews will help us out. Let's go right to the source.
How tall are you, Kevin?
7'2".
Average, ordinary, everyday, run-of-the-mill, 7'4" guy who couldn't shrink.
Okay, well, there you have it. I mean, aren't we all just a bunch of different heights throughout our lives? In one of his last interviews, published just 2 months before his death in the February 1991 issue of Starlog magazine, Hall took stock of his career.
I did go through a period where I thought it was time to give up on monster movies. And then the scripts and the effects started getting better. I was treated better. I started getting paid more. Now with creatures like Harry and the Predator, it's more a matter of getting deeper into their characters and making sure they work.
When asked point blank whether or not he intended to keep doing monster roles, Hall said what we're now all thinking.
I'll always do costume roles. I'm bigger than life, and so in a way, I'm part of the fantasy, science fiction, horror genre. But I'm more than just a guy in a suit. When people want big and a performance along with that big, I'm the one they call.
You know, Stan creates the outside, and then I'm like the spark, you know, like the life that's inside. Without that, you know, you just have a suit.
Kevin Peter Hall, gone too soon and yet somehow here to stay. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm not actually going to start a Change.org petition to try and get NBC Universal to release Harry and the Hendersons, but feel free to share this video far and wide. I don't usually end my videos with calls to action, like subscribe, write me in your will, or whatever, but I'm thinking the simplest way to get Kevin Peter Hall's remaining work released might simply be to let the world know that there's an audience. Also, if you're interested in reading the full interviews with Kevin Peter Hall, I'm going to upload the scans to my Tumblr and then link them below. And don't think I forgot about Misfits of Science. One Region 2 box set ain't gonna cut it. I want Blu-rays, I want merch, I want retrospectives and remakes. That's right, remakes. Tommy? Ma'am? Can I help you? For what it's worth, Hall wasn't completely critical of his... Why am I having such a hard time saying this? Ma'am. Can I help you? Excuse me. Miss, you're in the shot. Miss, we're filming. You better not be licking that. Tommy, what's up? No, that's vintage.